Hey, hi, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yaya the Fangirl, and as you can see today with all of the pumpkins in front of me, we will be building a pumpkin patch and a pumpkin contest area here on Ciderwhim, my Friendsgiving Challenge Island. This is a challenge created by the lovely Kaylee Games here on YouTube, and also just as a friendly reminder, anyone is actually able to participate in this challenge. As you can see from the image on the screen, both the pumpkin patch and the pumpkin contest are one of the required builds for the challenge, and I'm really excited to build this, and I might have gone a bit overboard with prepping the amount of pumpkins I would need, but I'm optimistic. I've kept Blathers and his tent for this island. I really wanted to use his tent as like an entrance or spot here for the pumpkin patch. But with that being said, let's kind of walk over here. So we've got Blathers' tent, and over here a little to the left, I have more pumpkins, but this is kind of the area that I'm thinking of using for the pumpkin patch and the contest area to kind of show you the map as reference. It's kind of this weird peninsula thing I built behind resident services, but I'm really excited. So with that being said, we're gonna decorate this whole area today. Now turning it over to voiceover Yaya. So one of the first things I do is go back and kind of pick up some of this stone fencing I had put down. I don't know why I had felt the need to surround Blathers' tent with stone fencing. I think maybe it was at the time to prevent myself from accidentally donating something. But I do know I definitely want to use the stone fence. I'm a little bit obsessed with it. So here I'm going around and kind of generally outlining where I'm kind of thinking in my head mentally to kind of designate this is the pumpkin patch area. Obviously leaving gaps and spaces to add trees around the build. And that is what I'm doing here, is popping in a bunch of trees. I decided to kind of fill in the gap behind Blathers' tent since I can't move it with just, a variety of different trees, kind of stunting them, and then filling in all of these little gap areas that I have around here. It did take me a while to kind of figure out exactly where I could and could not put trees, so you'll see me dig a bunch of holes and then line up myself to put the tree in the correct hole. I do want to admit that this build took me a full 3 days IRL to get through it and get it all built. Part of that was me splitting up the build across the wedding weekend for my brother. Probably didn't time that all accurately, and then building on top of that, forgetting additional things, and then having to make multiple treasure island runs. But we got there in the end. It did take a little bit longer, but I am really happy with how the end turns out. So here next I start laying down the in-game pathing, alternating the light and dark dirt once again. I love how that looks. I think you're going to see it a lot here on Ciderwhim, just as a warning, FYI. But I start laying down the in-game pathing, really trying to make sure that I've designated enough space for the true pumpkin patch area. I do debate on whether or not I want to do a similar staggering path lines like I had done over on the mini farm for the barnyard build, but then after thinking about it, I was like, no, we're gonna mix it up. We're gonna have this be even all along one side. That's how it's gonna be. So as you can see, designating out the pumpkin area, and now I just start burying the plethora of pumpkins that I picked up. I had discovered a couple of times that I would accidentally pick the pumpkins or the flowers instead of just digging them up. I blame that on trying to, bounce back and forth between playing Stardew Valley and Animal Crossing, where, the buttons and the controls are all vastly different. So it kind of sometimes breaks my brain a little bit. So just as a warning, you'll see me do that a lot during this build, but I do my best. I had seen a couple of different inspiration photos on Pinterest for pumpkin patches. Some obviously where they had just completely filled in the in-game pumpkin plant. Others where they had used just, a bunch of the spooky items, the, carved pumpkin or the jump surprise one. Oh, I can't remember the name of that item, but the other pumpkin item. And I was decided that I was going to kind of do the mixed approach. And later on in the build, you'll even see that I actually add in a pumpkin hat code as well to kind of mix it up even more. I really wanted to do this just to make it feel very full, and also to kind of help break up the heights and the differences. And I do my best to kind of mix all the different colors of pumpkins, the greens, the oranges, the whites, and yellows. Green, oranges, yellows, and whites. Yes. Okay, that's all the colors. And as you just saw, I am also doing my best to remember to put down the custom codes that I have collected for this island while I'm building, or in the build, versus remembering at the end and then going back and trying to pick things up. Trying to get into a better habit of doing it organically as I go, but I think that's going to be a habit that's going to take me a while, to be honest. Spooky trick lamp. That's the name of that item. And I felt like my pumpkin patch was not complete without a scarecrow. I did decide to go with the normal scarecrow versus the spooky one. I don't know. It felt more nostalgic to me. I feel like it was around this point where I kind of felt like I was starting to lose steam on this build. It was just kind of like, what other things could I put in? What could I mix up with it? Do I have all of the right things? And, it started to just kind of wear on me. And I think it was just because I was like, I need to get this done. And then I was packing to basically go away for a destination wedding. And, I felt like towards the end of this build, I had just put too much on my plate to properly enjoy the build, which is kind of sad. Looking back on this, I love the entire process of what got me to the final end result. But I feel like I can even tell just looking at my character's motions and where I'm walking to go put stuff down. I feel like I can tell that I'm losing steam, and I'm just okay, just dump everything out of your pockets, just put everything anywhere. On a lighter note, I feel like I am obsessed and I love these leaf codes that I had found on Pinterest, and I love how they almost perfectly match, or at least really closely complement and match the in-game leaf piles that we have available. There's a yellow one, a brown one, and a red one. I believe there was even a green scattered leaf code as well. Obviously they're for Fall Island. I didn't need those. The only thing I really wish is that there was a bigger variety of scattered leaves. I think I have 3 or 4 of the 3 colors, the yellow, the red, and the brown, but I kind of wish there was even more. maybe that's something I'll put on my like future wish list for Yaya to work on, is maybe trying my hand at, you know, a custom code and, you know, making more variety of leaves, because I love them so, so much. I just wish I had more variety to scatter around everywhere. Here I am going back and kind of filling in this empty space here behind Blather's tent, dropping in, you know, a little shed, some wheat fields, a decayed tree, really just wanting to make it feel full as you're like walking by the tent from almost any direction. Although just now, I think I just realized that I never put in a stunted tree next to that little one back there. Oopsies, I might need to go back and do that. What would a pumpkin patch be without a little checkout counter, you know, a place to weigh your pumpkin and make your final payment once you've picked the perfect one. Here I am going and just, you know, customizing a handful of things, the stall for the checkout counter. I also go ahead and customize a couple of tables in front of what's going to be the pumpkin contest area. I do kind of set up a little pumpkin carving area as well, so I just kind of was going ahead and I knew I was going to use this table, so I was like, might as well go ahead and customize them. I've got a handful of cloth patterns that I have thus far that I kind of like. A lot of them lean much heavier towards this kind of like brown color. Brown and orangey is kind of the whole theme of the mood board that I put together for Ciderwhim anyways. But I really want to try to like aim to add some more like pops of orange and maybe some pops of red. We'll see. Now it is time to fully define and separate, you know, kind of block off the pumpkin patch area. I wanted it to be very distinct, that like, hey, this is where the pumpkin patch officially ends. I did try out a couple of different fencing here. I tried the country fence. I know it looks really cute, but I feel like every time I end up using it in a build, I just don't like how it fits with what I have. I don't know why. It's weird. So instead, I decided to alternate here along this edge the stone fence with the barbed wire fence. I really like how this turns out. Also, to do my best to make it look even, swapped out a tree back there. That way there wasn't double stone fences at the end. Popping down the carving tables. At first I was thinking of having them lined up vertically, kind of like going front to back. I do end up changing my mind on that and then putting them at the front, but for now I put them down just, you know, get things out of my pockets. Going back, just trying to kind of fill in any weird gap spaces that I see with just the things that I currently have in my pockets. If I remember correctly, yes, here we are. This is where I'm like, you know what we also really need? We need another bridge. Because I had the realization that with the way I currently have the waterscaping done and this little peninsula, there is like no way except for a hop path to get back to this like back right quadrant of the island. And that would be fun if I was had intended that to be the case. But I just kind of accidentally done that and forgot about like, hey, how would you get over there? So decided I'm gonna add another bridge, and yeah. And it was basically, as you can see, immediately after adding the bridge that I was like, oh wait, if I have this like vertical front to back, how is there space for the pumpkin contest? That officially ends, I believe, the first day of decorating or day 2 of decorating. I'm not quite certain anymore. Sorry, can't quite remember where I've edited it together. However, this is where I go back. I've picked up a handful of things from the treasure islands that I needed, the weight scale, the cashier, like antique cash register. This is also where I believe I go and I add in the pumpkin hats. Oh, also a handful of flowers just to fill it out more. Yes. In my hunt for a giant pumpkin umbrella code, which, newsflash, I couldn't find one. I had to design my own, and I didn't do the best job, but I did a decent job, I think. But in that hunt, I feel like I found a lot of fun, unique pumpkin designs. And one of the ones I had found was these orange and yellow pumpkin hats. I had mentioned it earlier that I go back and I add these in here, and they are just so cute. And I really do like how they help with the breaking up the height differences of all the different things. Just lovely. Just lovely. Props to the creator on that. With that being said, we move on to the pumpkin carving area decoration. Another one of the fun pumpkin hat codes that I had found in my hunt for a giant pumpkin umbrella was these adorable carved pumpkin hats. I love the one that has the little hearts for eyes. I was like, I need to use those. I must have those in my life. But this is also when I really start struggling with the fact that when you're placing things on items, especially when you're placing hats and those types of things, if you're putting them on something, you can't just rotate that item on the table. You have to be facing the correct direction. And so I was like, oh, it's fine. I'll put, 2 carved on each back and then, have them face different directions. But then I was like, no, that was too much. It was too many carved pumpkin hats. And so I changed everything up a little bit. I do still keep a lot of those in this area and in this build, but I kind of swapped them out to be like, these are some samples of completed ones and just including more that aren't done yet. I decided I wanted there to be a logical path between the 2 bridges, even though there's technically not a logical path, really, through the pumpkin patch. So going back and getting to, for the first time on Ciderwhim, get to use this lovely brick kind of road, cobblestone path. And it is so cute. I really, really do like it. And I really like the diagonal. I do go back and change a good handful of things here, so don't get too sold on how it currently is, but I'm really excited to get to use this pathing more in kind of the small town area. I really wish that we could put those stools closer to the fences. That drove me bonkers, just a smidge, to be honest. I love that this code has a couple of the alternate centerpieces. I love that it has like a couple with leaves as well as that one with like the scattered papers. I'm like, ah, so cute. In my hunt for a giant pumpkin umbrella, I found a couple of variants of these umbrella crates that had pumpkins. And this first time going through decorating, I put down these specifically because I really liked that, the crate that like appears to be empty and you can kind of see it behind my girl there. I'm going to extend that so you can see it more a little bit. And I really love that empty crate look. However, I do go back and I do end up swapping those out for different pumpkins and crates just because they had a greater color variety, but it was kind of fun to see all of the different custom design codes that people had. And that officially brings us to the third day of decorating. Yes, and I recognize that transition right there. So this is where like we've wrapped up 2 full days and now this is the third and final day of decorating. Kind of walking around, refamiliarizing myself with everything and realizing that my giant field of pumpkins is driving me bonkers and needing to clear up space for that. With that out of the way, I did go also hunting during that little break for a possible more like natural dirt fall code. I had found this adorable yellow grass code on Pinterest. But once I actually start putting the code down here in the area I'm thinking of, you'll see in just a moment, I found that it really didn't fit the overall vibe and the theme. I felt like it was too yellow, if that's a thing. So I end up going on another kind of impromptu hunt for different codes. I think I tried like 3 or 4 different ones, just downloading over the code path that I had already put down on the ground, but glad to say that we do find a good code there in the end. Also, what is a pumpkin patch without like little standy things that you can stand behind that make you look adorable? And I found these and I was like, okay, perfect. But yeah, here I'm like trying to figure out the right distance from Blather's tent I want them to be. I feel like that took me a while. Also needed to move my prep station over. And continuing to add more leaves, more and more ground codes. Here's the point where I start putting down that first design code that I'd found, trying to kind of see how I wanted to connect the pumpkin patch area over to the pumpkin carving and pumpkin contest area, and realizing really quickly that I think, it's too yellow. I kind of put down a couple of pieces, but then, it wasn't the vibe. I'm not going to take you along with me on my code hunt, but suffice to say, I ended up trying 2 or 3 other path codes before I settle on this one that you see here. I'd gone and downloaded all of the extra bits, including a couple of these single tile, like vertical and horizontal pieces, which I really liked. I felt like that would make it more usable in other places on the island. And this is where I really struggle, is I know you can make amazing different kind of like path motifs with, the structure 9 and then adding these little one-offs. Like you're able to make some really fun and unique kind of path directions, but for some reason that always breaks my brain. It takes me like so long in my personal opinion to put down the path, and I think there really is an art to it. So I guess maybe it's just something that I'm going to have to practice to get better at. But I kind of think that's one of the reasons why I felt a bit intimidated by cottagecore and countrycore. I mean, I know I had Lovely Home, which wasn't necessarily cottagecore, it's just kind of whatever I liked and vibed with island. And then I did Knee Reach, which was straight citycore. So I think I'm just gonna have to get over my uncomfortableness with the path in order to, really branch out. Now that I'm done rambling about the code, you'll see that I actually did pop down some of that dirt path here underneath the, I can't remember the name of these items, but this is going to be our pumpkin contest area, specifically the judging and awarding area. And as I alluded to, you can kind of see here on the screen, I did make that giant pumpkin umbrella code because I wanted it to be like a pumpkin size contest, and I wanted I wanted a giant pumpkin, a really big pumpkin. And so I made this little umbrella code. Who knows, I might go back and kind of tweak it a little bit more just to give it some more depth and shading, but overall, if I don't change anything about it, I kind of like it. So, meh. We'll see. If I feel the urge, I will go back and develop it a bit more, but if not, that's fine too. Moving on from that, though, I do just start placing a lot of different items. I don't know, I'm obsessed with the barrels, and I wanted to incorporate them here in some way. So there's random barrels sitting around and, popping down more ground codes, just fun space fillers to make it feel full. I really love the orange of the festival items, so I popped a couple behind the judging area, and I kind of wanted to add these other festival banners kind of at the main entrances to the pumpkin contest and carving area to kind of help designate the space. Really, I just wanted an excuse to use the banners, but I mean, who's going to judge me for that, really? I feel like when I'm getting close to wrapping up a build, one of the last couple things I do obviously is trying to make sure I put down all of the last little details and space fillers, but I also find myself just kind of walking back and forth across the space. I kind of jokingly think of it like when you're making a painting, I always have to lean away and squint, because if you're overthinking it and you're like, oh, but I just want to fix this one more thing, like, stop. Like, before you do that, stop, because whatever you're about to do, you're about to ruin everything you've done thus far, even if you love what you've done thus far, and then you ruin it by like going over the top. So that was what I had done there, was like walking around, and I was like, no, Yaya, you're done. Let's go fill in the fully empty space over here on this side, with some trees and bushes and I think wheat fields, and I popped down, some flowers and a couple of other things around. But I was like, at this point, you're about to overcook your painting, Yaya. Don't do that. And also, as much as I do love that orange flower over there in the middle, I pick it up because my biggest fear was that it would like overgrow the space if I didn't completely surround it with transparent tiles. So I was like, let's not do that. So I changed my mind. And without fail, you will always accidentally kick off a ground code when you are meaning to do something else. But hold the phone, I almost forgot my favorite thing, scattered papers, because whether city core or here, scattered papers, they're perfect, especially when they're customized with the great code. In my last walkthrough, I felt like the area over here in front was still a little bare, so pop down a mush lamp, but I like the brown version much more, so I do have to remember to turn off that green if it pops back on again. That essentially wraps up this build with 2 final flowers, but now take a look at some beauty shots that I got. All right, that is it for today's build. Thank you so much for coming along with me on this multi-day journey that it took to build the pumpkin patch as well as the pumpkin contest area. Please share, do you also struggle with more natural path designs, or do you have like tips or tricks that you could share to help me out with that? Let me know in the comments below. Also, as always, don't forget to drop a like before you leave, and feel free to subscribe if you'd like to see more videos here on Ciderwhim. Until next time, bye!